Dent, so good to have you here, sir. I'm so glad that we were able to do this on a nice, sunny, hot day, as we were just discussing before we started recording here.
Yeah, thank you. I thought you were recording. I was hoping that our, banter about various antiperspirant products would make it in the pod, but I guess
I screwed it up, but yeah,
you guys can
Gillette,
you can DM us for our picks on deodorant brands.
right? And we'll rank them and we'll publish that.
Yeah.
Yeah, if enough people ask.
Okay, cool.
I'd mentioned before that I sweat a lot. Are you a sweater, or are you kind of just like
I
always
well,
hot?
to kind of recap our previous conversation, I was not a sweater until I switched to natural deodorant from the aluminum antiperspirants. Various research saying that the aluminum could cause Alzheimer's and other things. Don't really like the idea of like rubbing aluminum onto my body every day,
No, it's
but
not appealing.
we'll see what happens. I might switch back for the summer because it's getting a little sweaty.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
up to that point though, you weren't sweating as much.
I wasn't. I really well, and then it's really just been since it got to like 100 degrees temperatures that But I'm not like much of a sweater,
Mhm.
really.
As we speak right now, I can feel the bead just traveling down my
There you go.
forehead. But
I don't
that's
like
just
I don't like do a lot to make me sweat. So
anything makes me sweat. I was at the DMV 2 days ago. I was there, and the lady was like, "Oh, you need to fill out this form and da 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 da." I was sweating on the form. I was like, I don't know if this is gonna become invalid or not, but yeah,
you made it through.
made it through. Yeah, DMV gets a bad rap, I think.
I love it. I love it. I go there all the time just to hang out when I
Yeah,
don't even need anything.
it's a good place just to chill. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
When was the last time you got a new driver's license? Was that did you
When
have
I
you
moved to, I
read up?
think, well, the last time I think I did have to go back for something when I bought a new car, like in 2017, but I just got a license. Like I immediately got a license when I moved here in 2015 so that I could like get a medical cannabis card because you had to have like residency. So I was like literally like I moved to LA. It's like 5 days, like 3 days in. I'm like at the DMV getting like a California card, and I haven't had to go back because you can just do it all on the internet or mail or something now, but haven't spent a whole lot of time there lately. Thankfully, I think soon we'll have to get the real ID, which they keep pushing back. I don't know what the real ID is, but that's up next. Yes.
Um, was that a direct move from, because you're originally from Mississippi, right?
Yeah, I moved here from Mississippi. I grew up in Jackson, Mississippi, and I was living in Oxford, Mississippi before I moved here.
Good deal.
Yeah.
So I mean, you spent the majority of your life in Mississippi.
Yeah, I lived in Mississippi, went to high school there, and then I graduated from high school and went to New York for film school for 3 semesters. And then I dropped out of that, moved back to Oxford, home of the University of Mississippi, where I went to college. And then I lived in Oxford for some years after graduating. And then I ended up here in Los Angeles.
Did you start making music in Mississippi? Is that when that started?
Yeah, because I started like singing and performing in like church choirs and musicals at a very young age, and then taking like piano and guitar lessons. But I started like writing songs and performing in bands when I was like 13 or something like that. And I was in a bunch of different bands in like junior high and high school. Um, most of which had like the same friends. We would just kind of be like, oh, we're into pop punk now, change the band name. Oh, we're into like this now, so like change the band name. Um, and then like kick someone out, you know what I mean? But yeah, I was in a bunch of bands and like writing songs, like and like honestly releasing music. Like I made a cassette in seventh grade of cover songs with my friends that we recorded on a kind of like a home stereo system that had like 1/4 inch input for like a Radio Shack mic that we like put in the middle of the room, and the singer was like closest to it. Sounded pretty good, honestly. And then we like it was a covers. We covered like Eve Six and like uh Our Lady Peace, like maybe even Creed. We like covered a lot of like alt rock 90s, late 90s alt rock 311, stuff like that.
Just the best of the best. I mean, 311, that's creme de la creme right there.
Yeah, well, I actually wasn't the lead singer of the band. I was the rapper. So I did the 311 raps. I was kind of thinking about this the other day because I don't have a copy of the cassette. We sold about 100 copies of it at school, and I would love to find a cassette. And I've like actually tried to text and contact a lot of various people from that time in my life. Who has one? Who has one? I think someone found the artwork, which would be cool to like scan, but they didn't have the cassette itself. It's definitely a rarity that's going to be like fetching probably like millions on discogs.com one day.
Right. I've seen that there was like two sold at one point, and it was something outrageous, like $720 was
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
lowest. Or was on the
Yeah,
lower end. Yeah.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
So
like we made a CD, like my pop punk band Your Name Here in like eighth or ninth grade. Um, that was of songs I wrote, and I was the singer of that band.
that was the first entrance into like, let me write something that is inspired by 311, but not 311 itself.
Yeah, that was more like inspired by like Newfound Glory, a little Blink 182, but more like the lesser known Warped Tour bands. Not really, really into like Saves the Day, Less Than Jake, early Dashboard Confessional. Like I was definitely like a Warped Tour kind of pop punk emo kind of fan by that time. I kind of went from like new metal to pop punk to emo and then kind of to indie rock from there. That's kind of when I just, and then like also power pop. When by high school I was like listening to like Pixies and Elvis Costello and The Cars, but also like Phantom Planet and like Ben Folds Five and like Rooney, you know. Uh, so kind of a hodgepodge of that kind of stuff. I saw Phantom Planet open for Elvis Costello in Austin, Texas. My friend and I kind of pretended we were interested in going to Austin, University of Texas at Austin, but we kind of didn't really want to go there. We knew that, but we like kind of had a college trip to take a tour of the campus with my dad, and we're like, oh, Elvis Costello is playing with Phantom Planet. This is when Jason Schwartzman was playing in the drums in the band. Great show.
I didn't know that Jason Schwartzman played drums for Elvis Costello.
No, good one.
No,
Phantom.
but I also didn't know that he played drums for
Oh
Phantom
yeah,
Planet. That's pretty
he's
crazy.
the original drummer of Phantom Planet, and his brother Robert is the singer of Rooney.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Interesting. I did not know that.
yeah.
Uh,
Hey, yeah.
yeah, I mean, hey, I learned something new every day. That's a new thing I learned today. What were your parents kind of listening to? What was your dad listening to? What was
I
his
mean,
music
they
interest?
didn't listen to a lot of music, but they did have some records that, like that was like Beach Boys, Beatles, Bob Dylan, Rolling Stones, very 60s, almost no 70s music. There might have been like a Carole King tapestry in there somewhere, but my dad was like 45 years old when he had me, and I'm 38 now. So like his era, he's really into like 50s and 60s music, really into doo-wop and Motown. Grew up on a lot of soul. One of like the earliest things I remember listening to around the house was the Big Chill soundtrack, the movie The Big Chill, which is like
Right.
all these, like, heard it from the grapevine Motown kind of songs. So yeah, like from the earliest age, I was also really into Beach Boys, Beatles, Motown, 60s music, a lot of that. You know what I mean? So and then yeah, there's a lot of musical ability in my family, but more like just church playing piano, or like my dad was in the marching band, and my sisters took guitar lessons and sang in choirs, and but I was the only one that really ever tried to perform music on my own or anything like that.
So it wasn't super out of the realm for you to come to them like, hey, I'm interested in music. That wasn't like super out of nowhere.
They were supportive, but it was definitely different from everyone else in my family. you know
Mhm.
it was definitely, they were supportive, but it was not like, yeah. And then they were like, yeah, of course they're like, make sure you have a backup plan or whatever. I was like, definitely not. Not doing that.
So how did your dad like the Elvis Costello Phantom Planet show?
I'm trying to remember if he even went to the show or not. He might have, we were 17 or something, so he might have just dropped us off. I think he just dropped us off. I
Huh.
remember like there was a phase where I was like sharing music I listened to with them in high school and college, like, and like I think they were always liking what I played for them. I remember I gave them a copy of the Zombies Odyssey and Oracle album, which is a 60s out. They probably had heard Time of the Season or something, but that was like a lesser known 60s like album that they didn't know, and I remember they liked that a lot. So
Okay.
we were sharing some stuff.
Do you feel like the zombies have had like a renaissance in a way that more people know about them now than they did when they were out?
Well, definitely, but that kind of happened more. I mean, I'm sure it continues to happen, but I feel like that really happened in like the 90s or 2000s where the CD got reissued. I haven't like noticed a huge resurgence of them in the past like 5 to 10 years, although like they're beloved and iconic, and like Odyssey and Oracle is widely cited as one of the best albums of the 60s, but that was like happening, and like you could get like a Mojo magazine in the 90s and it would be like the Zombies. But I was talking about this the other day, they broke up before that album came out. And there's a really funny story about in Texas, you know, pre-internet, you could just pull scams like this. There was a local promoter in Texas, I guess Time of the Season or something like that was a big hit, but the band had already broken up. So they made a fake Zombies band of just locals pretending to be the Zombies and went on tour as the Zombies, but it was not the Zombies. And there's like a whole history of that you can read about online. It's pretty funny.
When did Dent May begin?
Yeah, I was like a senior in college, and I was graduating college, and I was like, what am I gonna do? And for some reason that was my idea. What I was going to do is like be a musician. And so I had like a couple things floating around in college. I started like a country rock band that never recorded on anything, unfortunately, called Cowboy Maloney's Electric City, that was sort of inspired by Graham Parsons. And then yeah, I did this like EP called A Brush with Velvet, with my first like ukulele. I don't know why I did air quotes, but my ukulele like songs that were kind of, I was listening to like Jens Lekman and the Magnetic Fields and stuff like that at the time, and did this like kind of, yeah, ukulele and vocals EP that I released in 2007, which is the year I graduated college, and the rest is history, I guess. I don't know.
Uh, how long were those songs in rotation for you before recording that?
I was pretty much recording them as I wrote them, except for like Meet Me in the Garden was like one that like I just had that chorus, like I'd been playing that on piano for like a couple years or something. Like that was kind of one of the first songs that I was kind of like really excited about, but kind of not really spending a lot of time finishing the verses for years. And then like I remember writing the song Howard, and like I think I was pretty soon after that I was doing these recordings on GarageBand on my laptop with a USB microphone called a Blue Snowball,
Oh
which is,
yeah, sure.
yeah. So that's what the whole thing is. It's just like using that for the ukulele, my vocals, and then like hand claps and like tambourine and harmonies, and then almost most of those songs from the EP got re-recorded for my debut album.
What was it about the ukulele that you're like, all right, I wanna bring this into the fold. I want this to be a part of it.
I mean, it was actually something that I learned how to. Probably my first actual instrument. Like my mom taught me some songs on ukulele. Like she randomly like knew how to play ukulele, and like one of the song that she taught me how to play is
The
on.
zombies. It's
Yeah,
time of the season.
exactly.
I just
How did you guess?
I know
Uh,
I had a gut feeling about that.
yeah, it's actually the song is on my first album. It's a cover. It's called 26 Miles Across the Sea. And I'm even blanking on like which 1950s kind of vocal group made that a popularity. But it's kind of a ukulele standard. It's about Catalina. And so I even put that on my first album. So there was sort of like that kind of, I was already kind of like into it, but I also kind of like, I think I very early on like saw the need to do something that was like, I don't want to say even different or unique, because it's not necessarily different or unique, but I thought like Dent May and his magnificent ukulele, which is what I was performing as, honestly was just almost like a gimmick to like get people to be like, the what now? You know what I mean? So I kind of like wanted to, and like I've always had in mind that like, having a limited palette and making decisions like that can like kind of just force you to do it. So it's like, oh, I'm only allowed to use like ukulele and like my voice and like hand claps and stuff like that on the EP at least. And I was like, I just kind of made a decision to do it. And I kind of thought it was an interesting way to present my music that people might notice or something like that. I don't know.
Was the brush with velvet, a brush with velvet, right? I had that
Right.
correct.
A Brush with Velvet. Yeah.
From that to the actual album, and that was the good feeling of Dent May and his magnificent ukulele, right? That
Right.
was the first album. Did you feel
Yeah.
like you were you were kind of expanding a little bit in between those two, like making it a little bit more drawn out than what it was with the initial EP?
Yeah, in fact, I came very close to abandoning the ukulele altogether before the first album, and I was kind of like, because I mean, we all know like the ukulele became sort of like corny, or I don't know, like I feel like there was like this like by like 2010 or 11, it was like you're watching like a Charmin toilet paper commercial, and there's like a twee like ukulele with like a xylophone or something in it, and like I kind of saw that coming and was like, I'm kind of over using the ukulele as my calling card. And honestly was like kind of feeling that way even before the first album happened, which all the ukulele aficionados will be mad at me for, but they already got mad at me when I like stopped playing ukulele later on. But yeah, so I definitely like, yeah, I was really wanting to use other instruments. In fact, I wanted to use more like synths and other things, but then like kind of just like talking with my friends about it and like I don't know. I just kind of said, let's stick with these demos I have and just like add some acoustic guitar and just keep it really simple. I'm glad I did. I think it's cool for what it is. And but I knew immediately that I would not be making a ukulele album like that again, or at least for a long time.
Mhm. You ever think about bringing it back?
Well, I think I should like bring it back live, like, you know, do a little encore and play a few. I'm totally down. Honestly, like I haven't done that more out of laziness because it's like, oh, I have to bring another instrument and then like have an extra DI on stage to like plug a ukulele in, like, which is really pathetic that I think that way. But I just like haven't done it yet. But I think that maybe that's a really good idea to bring it back and like, yeah, I think it'd be cool to like do an encore or something and like play Meet Me in the Garden on ukulele. You know, I think that, but I know at this point, I feel like it's hard to say if maybe more people know me not even as that. So they would be like, what? You know what I mean? It just depends. Depends on when you found out about my music or whatever.
It depends on when you became keen on Dent May.
It depends on when you became a dent maniac. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? You're the dent maniac origin story.
right, right, and that is the origin of that. Yeah, going back to the Meet Me in the Garden, that song, do you feel like that was the most popular one, or that people paid attention to the most?
Yeah, it was like the lead single on my debut album. And it also was a 7-inch single, like a small label in the UK put it out as a 7-inch, the demo version before the album. And that was kind of the one that I sent around to blogs back when those were, I mean, they still exist, but that was like really the way you got your music heard back then. And I put it on MySpace, did a lot of MySpace networking, and met a lot of musicians there. You know, I was in Mississippi, so not, you know, there was actually a pretty cool small local scene that of myself and my friends in Mississippi. But you know, as far as getting out of there to get some ears on our music, MySpace, blogs, did a short tour um, up to New York and back in 2008 with my friend John Barrett, who has a band called Bass Drum of Death. That's one,
Okay.
that's one of the other bands that like kind of is still going out of Mississippi. A great band that still is pretty popular and really good. Put out an awesome album, I think just this year or last year, I can't remember.
They got some great stuff. Yeah.
And then yeah, a big thing was that I met the band Animal Collective in Mississippi where they were recording Merriweather Post Pavilion, their album. And then I met them there, and then I gave them a copy of my EP, and they asked me to be on their label Paw Tracks. So that's the label that released my first album and my first 3 albums. But I had also had other labels had messaged me on MySpace and stuff at that time. So
Because of the networking.
yeah, a lot of, yeah, or just by network, I mean just like messaging people, being like, please listen. Yeah, it's yeah, I'm more of a networker, like less of an artist, musician, more of a networker, you know.
Right, right. You sort of stumble across
Business cards,
music
that kind of
within networking, yeah. And
thing.
that's just, yeah. Going back to Meet Me in the Garden, though, you said that took a while to kind of finish and
Mhm.
hash out.
Yeah.
Uh Without that time of it kind of sitting stagnant and then coming back and revisiting it, do you think that it would have been a different, or it wouldn't have popped off as much or had as much success if it was kind of put out earlier than it was, or
I have
finished?
no idea. You know, I don't know. You can't, that's not really for me to answer because writing songs is so like it's always different, and you know, songwriters will always talk about how some songs you wrote so fast, I don't even remember writing it. And oftentimes songwriters tend to like those songs a lot, and oftentimes people will say, oh, my biggest songs I ever made are the ones that happened the fastest, which isn't always true, but there's something to be said for something that just like pours out of you, of course. But then on the other hand, there's like all these other songs that like take longer to finish, which um but that is one of those songs where I do think both there was kind of like two phases, and the first they both kind of happened really fast and like poured out of me, and I don't even remember it happening, but like it was just happened in two different phases where the first time was like the chorus and the second time was the verses, but that was like a year and a half apart or something.
And then Do Things followed
Yeah,
up the good feeling music of Dent May
yeah.
and his magnificent ukulele. I like to say the whole thing. I
Thank you.
love it. Yeah.
Well, it's fine. Just to briefly make a side note is the first CD I ever bought was I looked for the Big Chill soundtrack at the CD store, but they didn't have it. They had a different compilation, which you can look these up. They do exist. I'm not lying. The good feeling music of the Big Chill generation. Because the Big Chill soundtrack was so popular, someone else put out these like compilations of Motown and oldies called The Good Feeling Music of the Big Chill Generation. And that was the first CD I ever bought. And that was the reference of my first album title. Moving on, second album is called Do Things.
I love that little side note. That was awesome.
Thank you.
Did you eventually get the Big Chill soundtrack on CD though? Eventually.
I never had it.
Oh, shit.
Hello, Christmas gift idea.
Discogs, get on it.
Discogs. First
Uh, Real quick, were you listening to more CDs or more tapes? What was your kind of mode of consuming music?
Well, as a
I
very young kid, tapes. You
Mhm.
know, I think the Ace of Base album was one of the first cassettes I had. I had a lot of I was into a lot of rap music. I had like Puff Daddy and the Family um album, the album with all the hits, like the first album or whatever. No Way Out, I had that on cassette. I had like the Mo Money Mo Problems cassette single. I
Oh,
had
a single,
a
yeah.
lot of I had a lot of cassettes. I had a lot of cassettes, and then I got CDs. I see, I had TLC, Crazy Sexy Cool, Boys to Men 2. I had those on cassette, and then yeah, CDs. Yeah, I got that. And I remember my sister. Kind of a defining moment in my life is when my sister got Weezer Blue Album and Green Day Dookie on CD like the same day, and I fell in love with those, and that was kind of my like kind of shift into the rock and roll lifestyle.
That you still continue on today.
Oh yeah.
This,
Oh yeah.
yeah. Was your sister was older or younger than you?
You have two older sisters.
Two older sisters. Yeah, that's always important to have like your siblings. Like, hey, this is the
Oh,
cool.
yeah.
This is what you got to be listening to.
Agreed.
Very pivotal. So, Do Things came out
Uh-huh.
after
Yeah.
the good feeling music.
Yeah.
Um, when that happened, did you already know like okay, I'm gonna make this shift sonically into like not using
Yeah.
because like what was that the shift of like not using ukulele and you're like going in a new trajectory?
Yeah. I feel like that's kind of the story of that album is like me really just wanting to like shake it up stylistically. And I was, you know, I got like a Roland Juno 60 synthesizer and you know, I got into, you know, that's like chill wave was like popping off and stuff like that. So I was like definitely getting into like synthesizers and drum machines and yeah, I don't know, I think that like that was kind of like a big part of that album was just me like messing with different sounds. um you know, I definitely think, and then yeah, songs getting into more of like even I don't know about poppier, but like kind of listening to a lot of like 80s and 70s and 80s and 90s pop and soul and funk and boogie music and things like that. um and just trying to do that. But yeah, it was definitely like very much a reaction against doing the ukulele thing, for better and for worse, probably. You know, I think that that's just kind of like another step in me like finding where I am today. And yeah, there were definitely some people that got mad that I didn't play the ukulele anymore. And then, but yeah, no, it was fun. Did a lot of touring on that album, and just kept going. Yeah.
Did you take that into consideration when you're writing this, or formulating this album, that, oh man, there's gonna be like pushback, or were you even did it even cross through your mind like how people, the audience, was gonna um look at this album?
I mean, it crossed my mind, but like I think it's pretty obvious like the advantages and disadvantages of doing something like that. So it's like it was what I wanted to do. So I there wasn't really any stopping me from doing it. So it crossed my mind, but yeah, I don't know. Um yeah, and I don't know. Like I think I also like by that point I also like started booking DIY shows and promoting shows in Mississippi. And that was another big part of what I was doing is I like lived in and ran like a show house that had like a bunch of shows. And so like it was just kind of this whole other world of me like being out about and about like meeting other musicians and like so I don't know, it was like I felt more part of a music community at that time and I don't know if that really is speaking to the sonic sound I chose for the album or not, but it was just kind of like my priorities were, I don't know, not as much like, and never have been really like that worried about the reception of what I do, you know?
Even now, I mean, it crossed your mind, but you're not focusing in on it.
I mean, it's like kind of a little of both because I do like always say like I don't know like I don't make music for myself necessarily. I think it's a popular line that artists give. It's like I make music for myself. It's just therapy, and that's totally not me. Like I very much write music to sing to other people, to share with other people, to perform, and it's not for me. I don't listen to my own music ever. Like it sure there is like a therapeutic aspect of making art, but you know anyone has access to that and that's cool, but like I very much make music to perform and to share, but like at the same time like overthinking the reception of what I do is something I very quickly learned not to do because that's like creative poison. So um I just want to make something that I really like and that I think that my friends would really like, and sure that I think that other people might really like, but it's more of just like yeah, I do what I want on the other hand. You know what I mean? Like it's and I think that if I like it a lot, somebody's probably gonna like it a lot too.
Hmm. Is it difficult to stay away from that artistic poison? In that case, and in any other cases that it might um be
Yeah, I
for
mean
you.
it is difficult, but it is like I've just been doing it so long that I think I've kind of moved on from worrying about that. Of course, it's not like it, I mean, it's impossible to like release an album of original songs and not think about what the reception is going to be or hope for more people listening to it. Um, but I don't know. I just kind of learned early on not to dwell on that because it's gonna like break your heart either way. Like I've never really released music and been that satisfied with it, or like, you know what I mean? It's just like, and but then you look back on it a year later, and you're like, damn, that's cool. I did that. You know, it's just you just got to move on with your life and just keep making stuff. And so I don't really think about that at all.
But you're thinking about it right now.
Yeah. Oh my God.
I apologize for that.
I'm
This is
I,
my
I'm
fault.
quitting music forever. I can't handle the pressure.
Oh fuck. When did you start to embrace, like, all right, this is going to be a new direction uh with my music? Was it pretty early on that you embraced that, like, okay, we're moving in a
Yeah.
different capacity?
I mean, I don't know. I had this idea like around the time the ukulele album came out. I was like, I'm gonna make like three albums. One's gonna be a disco album, one's gonna be a country album, and then like one's gonna be like a folk rock album. You know, I don't know, but like, or I guess country and folk rock. I can't remember what or like a soul like funk. You know, I don't know what I was saying, but like, so yeah, like I kind of had all these different ideas bouncing around my head, and then I just kind of like, I don't know. I think I ended up just kind of trying to synthesize them all into one thing, and like at this point, I don't. I think by the time that like the third album, Warm Blanket, came out, I don't think I was even thinking about stylistic choices in the sense of just kind of like embracing anything that was thrown at me and trying to just like tap into like anything that I found inspiring. So I'll have a funky bass line, but I'll have a strummy acoustic guitar. You know what I mean? I'll have a 808 hand clap, but I'll have real drums. And so I've always just kind of like, oh yeah, because you know it's more of like a synthesis of all the different stuff I like rather than being like I like country and I like R&B and I like disco, so I got to like this is going to be a disco song, and it's more just like it's a lot more fun to me if I like just try to embrace anything and kind of throw it in the blender and see what comes out. Like another, artist I really was into early on was Beck and like the Odelay album and things like that, where it's like, this is like a postmodern, like just like kaleidoscopic, trip of an album. And like, I love that too. So I think certainly by like, yeah, like Warm Blanket and then Across the Multiverse, I had like kind of embraced just like this kaleidoscopic kind of approach where it's not like I'm thinking about genre in any way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but it does fit, but it is moving in different ways.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Gotcha.
That's more like song by song or moment by moment than it is like, let me like think of my new sound for my new album, you know?
Right. Did you find it freeing or kind of like nerve-wracking that you're like, "Oh man, I'm really stepping out of the box here."
Completely freeing. Like just totally like down for whatever. You know what I mean? Definitely freedom. And like some of it's like a necessity where it's like I also like I did a lot of solo shows with ukulele and I did a tour opening for Animal Collective with myself playing ukulele and my friend Robert doing shaker and tambourine and doing background vocals. And those shows went really well. But then like a sold out London show to 2,000 people. I was like, oh, I see like having drums is like almost like you have to have that. People will talk over you. And you see it all the time. You see like a solo artist, especially when they're opening for another artist, like the crowd talking through. And so now if I do a solo show, even now, I have a little drum machine track or something like so. Adding the drums and stuff for the debut album from the EP was also just like me being like, okay, this is like, playing live is coming into my mind as well. And like, you know, so a lot
Right.
of it was just kind of natural things that I picked up along the way that, you know,
Worked the way in.
yeah, exactly.
Johnny Cash, I think, had the same thing. He didn't want to add a drummer, but he was playing at a bigger venue. He's like, guitar and bass ain't gonna cut it. We gotta have something else.
I see it all the time. I still, go to shows all the time where there's like a solo artist and everyone's talking through it. And maybe they still talk through it with the drums, but I think that it just sounds better in the room, And I like the energy of it. I mean, I do like bar rock, like bar rock. I'm like a bar fly, like seeing like a rocking band in the corner. Like that's cool. I like the energy of it. I like, you know, it's a good feeling music. So people are supposed to have a good time to it and having like a beat and a bass line.
When did you decide it was time to move to LA?
I think it was about, I mean, I moved here in January 2015. I came here in 2014 to like look for a place, which was very stupid. Like now I know like when you're looking for a place in a big city, you got to be ready to like sign and like move in. So it's like, 2 months before we're moving and they're like, okay, it was really hard to find a place. I still live in the house that I found then in Highland Park to this day, which is cool. But I don't know, it's kind of like brewing in my head for a couple years, before I moved. And I moved here in a caravan with like four other people from Mississippi. And I have a very strong group of friends from Mississippi that live here that I hang out with all the time. And so that was like a big part of it. I also was very strongly considering moving to New Orleans, which is kind of like one of the closest big cities to where I grew up, where a lot of my friends live, and it's like one of my favorite cities. It's beautiful, but I settled on like Los Angeles, partly because of like the friends I already had that lived here. And so yeah, it was like a couple years of it kind of brewing in my head, and then just did it. Yeah.
Right. Did you contemplate maybe going back to New York?
Yeah, I mean, I still think about that all the time. I love New York. I mean, it is interesting the ebbs and flows of like scenes and things like that. Where like in 2015, there was very much everyone's like, "Whoa, LA is so cool!" Like we didn't realize how cool LA is. Everyone from New York is moving here, and there was a moment, and obviously New York is very expensive, but like in 2015, LA was much cheaper than New York. It's not that way anymore, which is can be a factor when you're thinking about where you want to like move if you want to move to a big city from the small town you grew up in or whatever. But yeah, also like Los Angeles was like pretty affordable back then, relatively speaking. And New York wasn't. And then but now like post pandemic, like New York, everyone's like, New York is back, baby. And but yeah, it never went away. I love New York. I lived there for a couple years. Um and I'd like to spend more time there. I mean, the dream is just to like be able to be like, oh, I'm subletting somewhere for a month or two, and there's a piano. I'm gonna write some songs. So that's kind of like what I'd like to be doing. I mean, I love being back in the South.
Mhm.
So, like a little farm in the South, cozy up there for a little while. Um, Always down with that. I mean, my what third album, Warm Blanket, I rented a house in St. Augustine, Florida. This is while I was still living in Mississippi, but I rented this like Victorian, very beautiful home in St. Augustine, Florida. And there was like a beautiful grand piano there. And I like made the album there over the course of a month just by myself. So
Oh wow.
I'd like to do things like that again in the future. There's all kind of places I'd like to go.
Does location impact the music, or have you felt that that has ever had an effect on the music that you make?
Yeah, of course, but also it's more like the feeling than it is like, I mean, yeah, it's the location, but part of it's like the feeling, the like aesthetic and the vibe of like the space you're in, specifically like that house in St. Augustine, Florida, was probably more influential than the city of St. Augustine, Florida. Although I did meet some really cool people down there and go to some local shows and then like dig into the local music scene there. And it's a really cool town. So there's that too, but I didn't even know that going into it. But yeah, of course, where you're at is going to influence what you do, whether you're making art or you're doing anything, you know,
Right. What was the first album that you made living in LA?
across the multiverse,
That's multiverse. Okay.
which came out in 2017. Oh, yeah, it's been a while. So yeah, I did two albums in LA, 2017 across the multiverse, and then 2020's late checkout.
When you first moved out to LA, what was the scene like? The music scene that you were getting into? And was it really was it more foreign to you than what you were coming from?
I mean,
Or
some of it's like friends I'd like knew, but it's kind of funny. Like a lot of the friends I knew before I came to LA that I thought would be like my best friends out here, I'd never even hung out with, like even once or twice when I came out here. And some I did, some I didn't. But I remember, I think the first person I met as a musician here was Alex Breton from Mild High Club. The the Yeah, there was actually that like November 2014 trip I made to look for my place to live. I actually randomly met him with some other friends, and he gave me a 7-inch of his like debut single on Stone's Throw. And like he became one of my best friends here, like among like in 2015. I hung out with, I was hanging out with him all the time. I met like Mike Collins from Drug Dealer, like probably in 2015. 16, Natalie from Wise Blood was playing a lot of shows and going to see her, and like Mac DeMarco moved here at some point, and yeah, there was, I mean, like, yeah, I met Jerry Paper. So there's definitely like this kind of weird pop Northeast LA thing, I guess, that I was going on then that still goes on now. You know what I mean? I don't know. I live near Stone's Throw Records, and then Zebulon opened and like, I don't know. Just it is what it is.
do you work on music every day, Dent?
No.
When
I'll go through weeks where I don't really work on it.
Mhm.
I am lately because I'm like getting pretty close to finishing a new album, which is fun. Yeah, I think I go through like phases where I'm like more regimented in my schedule, and then other um phases where I'm not at all, and I'm just kind of doing my own thing. So yeah, I really only make music when I really feel like I compelled to do that. I really don't force it that much. I rarely, I mean, sometimes I do, but I rarely find when it's like I want to write a song and you sit down to do it. It doesn't always work. Sometimes it works. So when I do that, is more when I have a batch of songs, and then I'm like, oh, I know what to do now, which is kind of where I'm at now, where it's like, oh, I have the 12 songs. I need to like make them, uh, listenable on a recording, and then you have stuff you can do every day, and I guess you can kind of sprinkle that in throughout your life and kind of be always working on that, which is kind of what I do. But no, I don't know. I don't have like a schedule or anything like that.
Mhm. When you're not working on music, what do you do with your time?
Hang out with friends, will listen to music, read books, watch movies, go to the beach, just living a really glamorous lifestyle. I do have, yeah, some other little odd jobs I do for work here and there. Um, and I DJ weddings on the weekend. That's my main like job besides making my music.
Big Chill soundtrack
Yeah,
on.
a lot of that, a lot of Motown. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. On a day where I'm not making music, I really kind of feel like I ultimately am, because everything I do is in pursuit, for the most part, of like feeding the well of inspiration to at some point write a song. I mean, there is, when I read a book or when I watch a movie, everything I do, at the very least subconsciously, I'm aware that it's feeding the music making process, but it's not, um the process itself is like really chaotic for me.
It's sometimes indirectly affecting it.
Exactly.
The the songs, I mean, like let's take this point that you're at with developing songs. Do you find yourself listening to music quite often at the moment right now?
Yeah, I really do. Yeah.
Do do you feel that the songs that you're listening to, or the music that you're listening to, like makes its way in, like seeps in a little bit to the music that you're making?
Yeah. And sometimes on purpose.
Mm,
You know, sometimes I listen to music specifically for ideas, or just because I'm like, or maybe I'm like chasing a train of thought, and I want to go deeper down that train of thought. So it's like, oh, this, I like heard this and I really loved it. I want to like go a deep dive on either this artist or this sound, or and really like kind of searching for ideas. Not that I'm necessarily going to specifically rip off, although that can sort of happen, like whether it's on accident or on purpose. But like, yeah. So I definitely like, especially at this stage in what I'm doing right now, have a very purposeful listening habit. You know what I mean? Where I'm kind of trying to feed the inspiration a little bit.
uh, going back to like the step before that, there's no like kind of path or things that it's not mapped out of what you need to do, but now you're kind of at that point that you know kind of what needs to happen in order to get it started. Is that the most difficult part of making music? Is like I don't really know what to do next, or
I think the most difficult part of music is when you want to be writing these amazing songs and it's just you don't really feel like you have any ideas. You know, for me at least, there's long periods of time where I don't feel like I have a reason to write a song, and that's the hardest part. Or maybe you like, it still happens where like I have this chorus idea. Maybe I was driving down the road and I like flipped on voice memos and started singing into my voice memos, and like something came out, or I have like a really, it happens quite often that I have a chorus, an idea for a chorus of a song, and then the verses, and then like I don't chase down the verse. If I don't chase down the verse in that moment, much like the song we were talking about earlier, like that can sit for a while, and you have kind of trouble tapping back into that emotion and that like headspace to finish it. So yeah, it's kind of hard. It's hard having a bunch of fragments of song ideas and not knowing how to finish them. There's a lot of frustrating things though. I mean, I was definitely, you have the thing where like I like my demo of the song and then I like go to the studio and do real drums and start fleshing it out, and then I'm like, was the demo better? Blah blah blah. And but then you kind of be like, what really do I like more about the demo, and what is just me being like, oh, this vocal take is the one that I've heard over and over again. Like, so, and then you can take some, you can learn from the push pull of that, and then it helps you focus on how to finish it. But I would say this is not the hardest part of it. I,
Mhm.
you know, it's more about just like, oh, let's get a drummer on this, and then let's maybe like retrack the guitars in a way that sounds good and recut the vocal, you know.
Right. When you're reworking on a idea for like a chorus, for instance, and you're trying to add verses to it, let's let's use that example. It does the new idea that you have, like, okay, that doesn't really fit what I was doing with this original idea. Would you ever tailor the chorus to what the new idea for the verse is? Has that ever happened? That it kind of switches from like what the original outset was to what it became?
Honestly, not really. It is kind of like crazy where like I think that once I hear the song in my head, doesn't really change. I mean, it does a little bit, but it is kind of like from the tempo to the at least basic arrangement of like, is it a strummy guitar kind of basis? Is it a bouncy piano basis? Is the rhythm this, like the bass line like that? Those ideas happen very quickly in my head. And then it's more about just like getting the demo, whether it's a voice memo on my phone or a slightly more fleshed out thing in the computer, to remember the idea in the future. And they don't really change much at all. There are weird things where like, I've been doing a little more writing with my friends and bouncing ideas off my friends. um a couple of the new songs were co-written with my friend Paul Cherry, who's another really good musician.
I
And,
just had him on here, and go check out that
oh,
interview.
he's on here.
He's yeah. It hasn't came out for us recording this right now, but yeah,
Oh, cool. Yeah,
yeah,
it's crazy. You have a bunch of episodes. I gotta dig into your archives. That's gonna be fun.
yeah.
But
Please
yeah.
do, Dent. But yeah, Paul Cherry, go check
Oh,
him
but
out
for
too.
example, like we wrote a song together. I'm not gonna say the song title. And we wrote a song title.
We're gonna bleep it. We're gonna bleep it.
It's
Yeah,
really filthy.
yeah.
It's really filthy.
It's a curse. It's a swear.
No, but we wrote a different demo, and it had this really good title in my opinion. And then I kind of forgot about it for honestly like 6 months, if not a year. And then I had another instrumental idea that I was just kind of jamming on in my home little studio room where I'm in right now, late at night, and I just started singing that lyric with a totally new melody, totally different song over the new idea. And I was like, whoa, this is like a different song with the same title. um I'm just gonna chase that down. So I was like, I'm not gonna listen to the old one. I'm just gonna like work on this new idea, and then I'll play it for Paul and see what he thinks. And he was like, I like it. And then so we have been working on finishing the new version of the song. So that was like a weird example of something that's kind of like what you asked about, but
Oh,
it's
that's great.
otherwise it's like it's really rare where I'm like, I'm reworking the chorus of the song. For me, like it's very much like that is the song. That's the idea, that is like that's the soul of the song. You know what I mean? So, and is I don't know. I mean, sure, I'll tweak a lyric, or sometimes I'm missing a line, or maybe I just have one line that's the title of the song sung in a melody I like over a chord progression I like. Sometimes that is just the idea, but whatever the idea is that got me excited about it to begin with, like pretty much doesn't change.
Okay, good deal.
Yeah.
By the way, speaking of Paul Cherry and yourself, there's a great picture of both of you. It's just a picture of both of you. It looks very 80s esque.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, because
Oh,
we sort of we have a very loosely have wanted to do a side project together, which kind of started as a DJ duo. We DJed 2 or 3 parties together, and it really took the back burner to like writing and recording like our own songs. But we do have a lot of demos of kind of more dance oriented songs that we wrote together. And the project's called Nightscape Plush. And I do think that one day we're gonna like at the very least like make an EP that's in this vein. And the idea is like we can have guest vocalists, we can sing on it. It'll be like this fun like kind of dance project, the two of us. And that photo you're talking about was like to promote the DJ night.
it's an awesome photo.
Thank
It's
you.
fantastic. I really enjoy it.
Well, it's a place in Koreatown that's very popular, and I'm blanking on the title, the name of. It's like someone's name photo. But I tagged them. Tom's 1 hour photo, I think that's what it is. Tom's 1 hour photo in Koreatown has become very popular um, place to take those photos. They have that like very 80s, 90s, like um, not really kind of Walmart, but whatever those photo studio 80s, 90s photos are, kind of soft focus, like kind of jazzy background, and they have and Tom, I suppose is his name, has really leaned in to that as a photographer, and kind of gets, you know what I mean? And honestly, taking those photos was like, he was so cool. He was like posing us. He's like, now do like this. You know what I mean? Like do like having us like hold each other like prom style. Like he really got like the sense of humor with the photo style that like he's embraced. And you know, it's a cool spot. Tom's
Shout
one
out
hour.
to Tom. Yeah,
Shouts out. Legend.
man. Yeah, fantastic. Great photographer. Um, that'd be cool to dress the stage like that and have him take pictures and
Yeah.
like live pic. Oh,
Yeah.
Tom,
Tom. Tom's raking in now. He's like a local celebrity now.
Tom's gonna retire soon after all this,
I
and
hope
like,
not.
and we're
That'll
plugging
be a
him.
sad day for for the art. He's still got a lot of photos left in him though. Still got a lot of photos left.
There's still a film in the
Yeah,
camera.
yeah. I feel like like somebody like that place kind of went like viral when like I think like Casey Musgraves took some photos there like a few years ago, and that place like has since become like very popular locally. It's pretty cool.
I mean, the work speaks for itself.
You should go take a headshot for your podcast.
I think we should all go. I think me, you, and Paul should all go.
For
That's
this, Brandon. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
for the podcast,
Love it.
for Tom.
Yes.
Tom, let's work together. Let's do it. Kind of going back to taking a step away from music, or like taking a break from it and not working on it all the time, is it important for you to kind of take these breaks and step away from it for a bit and then come back to it?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like it's like you have to have a life that inspires what you write about. I mean, it's really important to me to like have fun, travel, read, yeah, like soak up inspiration through life. It's also just like, yeah, and it's like it's also just like having a headspace where you're just like have thoughts happening all the time, and I feel like increasingly people are like afraid to like even be alone with their thoughts. They're like constantly just like on the internet and stuff like that. So like I find it very, very important to like, I mean, like this time of year, I'm like gonna go to the beach all the time, like all the time. You know what I mean? And yeah, I think that that's really important for me to not just make music, but to like live life, things like that. So yeah, I don't know. I think that it's possible that I could like be like, you know what, I am going to work on music every day for like 4 hours. I know people that do that. It's not even 8 hours. They'll be like, I'm doing 4 hours a day, and then that could be cool. I mean, I should maybe meet somewhere in the middle where like
Two,
a,
two, two would be
a
meeting in the
little
middle.
more or just like where I'm a little more regimented than I am now, and you know what I mean. But it's definitely important to like live life, whether you're making music or not.
Right,
And
right.
yeah, I don't know. I think that one of the reasons when I was in college and I said I could be a musician, I mean, it was a little naive, to because a lot of people try and don't find a career there. But it was like I very early on was like, I don't want a 9 to 5 job. You know what I mean? And I never, aside from like working in a bookstore, which I like had a full-time job working in a independent bookstore for a little bit, like I've never really had one. And that was kind of part of it, was just like to build a life that I like. I don't know, just
Good.
to build my dream life, which
Yeah.
sounds selfish. Like I said, a lot of it is about community, sharing it with other people. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
That's a big part of what I do and why I booked DIY shows in Mississippi and why I continue to perform live to share it. You know, and that's why I'll be at a show to see other people play, and it's like very much about community oriented kind of thing.
Hmm. What has changed since, I mean, 2007 to now, throughout your music? Has anything changed?
I mean, my music, I don't know, it just is what it is. I write songs to the best of my ability, record them, release them, go on tour, and then do it over again. Sometimes it takes me 2 years to make the next album. Sometimes it takes me 4 years to make the next album. It's like this will be my sixth album. I've kind of seen it all. Like it's been a kind of up and down the whole way. And now, it will have been 15 years since my debut album next year. But so much has changed about what it's like to release music. Spotify didn't exist. CD sales were probably, it's hard to say if vinyl or CDs were bigger in 2009, but definitely like selling CDs and records was everything. You know what I mean? Smaller music blogs were very, very important to at least the indie music kind of ecosystem, which isn't really the case anymore. I mean, you kind of just see the consolidation really of like the corporate consolidation of like the music economy has accelerated quite a bit, where you have these big players like Spotify and Apple. No disrespect. Thank you to Spotify and Apple for putting my songs on your playlists and stuff. And as a listener, I love Spotify. Like I'm not one of those ones that like gets on Twitter and is like, fuck Spotify, give me my money. Yes, they should pay artists more. Like, very, very important that that happens. But I actually like the streaming music platform. Like I listen to so much music and stuff like that. But um yeah, I do think that like I would like to focus on making more money off of the streaming. I think that the payouts are not fair. But that
Right.
back to your question of like what has changed. Obviously, so much about like what it is like to release music has changed a lot. But on the other hand, like it kind of feels the same. It's kind of like, oh yeah, well, vinyl was big at one point, CDs were big, streaming is big. Like it kind of goes back to me not really overthinking or worrying too much about the process and just doing it. Like I'm just gonna do it. You know what I mean?
Regardless of what it is,
Yeah,
you're going to continue the
yeah,
what you've been putting out and releasing hasn't changed. It's still going to be songs. It's still going to be music. It's going to be
exactly.
what you want.
Yeah, yeah. So in some ways it feels like it's changed so much, but in other ways it has not changed at all. You know what I mean? And like I don't really concern myself with like um yeah, if getting on a blog or like getting on a Spotify playlist or something is like one of the main drivers of people listening to your music. I think that me making the best music I possibly can is the best way to make either of those things happen and not really worry too much about I mean, of course, as a human being, I'm really interested in like cultural shifts, the economy, like the market and the technology that surrounds art and music. Like that's all interesting to talk and think about. And I do and will we'll talk about that and think about that all day long. But like when it comes to me making the music, it's and this is what I tell people. People ask me advice all the time, and I'm like, it's so corny, but just like make the best music you can and keep doing it for like 10 years and then do it for 20 years because everybody's like, I have this EP and it's not blowing up yet. And it's been like 2 months already. And it's like, well, go on a DIY tour, keep making music. And I promise if you do it for like 5 years, people will find it and listen. The hard part is paying the bills in the meantime. And yeah, you got to find a flexible job. I found DJing weddings. You know, you got to find like a weird flexible job. And if you're really dedicated to it, you know, so I kind of went on a tangent there, but
No, I know. I like it then. And you also worked at Napster and you were the head of it for a bit before it
yeah, you know,
collapsed
I'm
as
also
well.
like an executive at Spotify.
That's where I know you. I knew you from somewhere. Dense.
Yeah, I'm actually
Okay.
like a billionaire, so I don't have to worry about this stuff. So
I don't
anyway,
think
sorry, losers.
you you're not in LA. You're in Sweden, right? You're in
Yeah,
Sweden right now.
yes, no, no, no.
I
I'm
think
just
I
a
think that's
humble songwriter, wedding DJ.
a
Um,
sto- a story of the ages, really.
yeah,
Yeah.
classic, classic.
Yeah. Um does or has what was inspiring you in 2007, for instance, and what inspires you in 2023, has that changed at all? Just subject matter for songs.
Mm, well, yeah, yes and no. I mean, it's more about like the energy behind why I'm driven to keep going. Where like in 2007, it's very different when like you've never been on a tour. I remember like I was having this conversation with like Sean Barrett, the guy I mentioned from the band Bass Drum of Death. Um, and we were saying like what our goals were. And I was like, honestly, I just want to play a show in New York. You know what I mean? That was my goal. I was like, I want to, if I could play a show singing my own songs in New York City, that's something I can be proud of for the rest of my life. And don't get me wrong, I'm really proud of that. I've played like 30 shows in New York by now, but like
You become jaded and you don't like it
it's
anymore.
hard not to become jaded, but I don't
I, I
consider
was I was just fucking around. I
no, but
wasn't poking fun.
you do, but it's like, you know, you absolutely do become jaded in a sense, but it's like important to not, you know. So yeah, it's just like, and now it's like, well, I want to make music. This is what I do. You know what I mean? It's less that I want to have anything to prove. Where I think I had more to prove back then, but I still do. I mean, I'm never satisfied with the music I make. I don't like it that much. I'm proud of it, but I always want to make something better in the future, and that's why I keep going ultimately. But as far as like the inspiration for the subject matter of what I write songs about, it changes every song I ever wrote. It changes, even if it's I've written a million love songs and they're all love songs. it changes every time. So yeah.
There's new loves.
Yep.
When was the first time that you were featured on a song? I know you've been featured on a number of songs. When did that start
Mm,
to happen?
mm, I don't know. I don't know what the first song I was featured on. I mean, there was back in the day, an artist named Pell, who is an awesome artist that is not originally, he's from New Orleans, but after Katrina like came to college in Mississippi, and is honestly an awesome artist that's still doing great. Definitely look him up, Pell. That might have been, he asked me to sing a chorus that he wrote, and I just sang it. That was literally like 10 years ago. I mean, that's one of the early ones I remember. And then like I asked Frankie Cosmos to be on a song, and that was kind of a featured artist situation on my song. And then yeah, I mean, I remember doing one with Okie Dokie that was kind of like a few years ago, and then like the I Dress song I did most recently, and then yeah, I mean, there's been a lot more recently.
Do you think that we'll see more?
Collaborations.
Yeah, like just yeah, strictly yeah, like a feature of, like one song.
I'm open to it, yeah, so because there, yeah, I mean, there's another song I'm working on with Jimmy Whispers, which will probably, he's another friend of mine that will probably make the album. um I mean, I definitely like it. I do increasingly find that I like to make music with other people, where like when I was in Mississippi, that's one thing that's changed a little bit, is that I am more open to collaboration now on a songwriting level. um but it comes and goes. Like I'll be like doing a lot of songwriting sessions for a while, and then I'll kind of get burnt out on that, and I'll really crave like a personal solitary like songwriting kind of period. And then I'll like hit up my friends, like, what do you think about this? Need some help finishing this one? And then like I'll kind of get back into the collaborative spirit. Paul is somebody that's been like definitely somebody that has like heard all my demos and given his opinion on every little thing. Um so yeah, I'm like definitely like bringing more people into the fold, whether they end up as a featured artist or if just like bouncing ideas off of them or what.
Mhm. Is it vastly different from how you write your own music and what and how you're working with these other people? Is it
Yeah,
or have you found that like other people's writing processes are vastly different than yours?
yeah. I mean, I do find that one thing that I never did, and I still don't love doing it, but sometimes it turns out awesome. I find that usually it doesn't turn out that awesome, but maybe I'm wrong. Actually, I don't know. But like one really common technique is that people will just make a beat, and then they'll put a scratch mic up and then just start freestyling melodies over it. That is kind of what I do when I'm playing a piano chord progression or guitar chord progression and start vocalizing in the room kind of out of nowhere to find the melody. The difference is I usually just do that in the room and hit record on the voice memo when I feel like I landed somewhere good. But I've noticed people will just loop something and then just kind of freestyle stuff. And then they'll also work really fast. Where like I've noticed with the younger artists, there's like a pressure when you're in the studio. They just like want to. They're like, "Oh, that was good," and I'm like, "Wait, wait, wait. Can we put a little more thought into those lyrics, please?" You know what I mean? Like, so I do find like I have more of an old school. Like, I'm gonna sit down. You know what I mean? With a pen and paper and like look at every word. And I'll still do that. I mean, the thing you find is that maybe in the session you came out with something that's kind of half baked, but you can return to it and then fully bake it in a good way. So, but that is one thing that I've really found, especially like for better or worse in the like LA co-songwriting scene. You know what I mean? Is that you just kind of get together. The worst is when you get together with a stranger for no particular purpose other than to write a song that, and usually like kind of the attitude is like, is it a hit? Or like, is it maybe some of these publisher setup sessions you want to like pitch it for sync for a commercial or something. And I'm like, that's like my least favorite thing. And in fact, I don't really do that anymore. Um, like I very rarely write with strangers that was set up by a music industry stranger. It's just more like organic people that I know and like my music, you know what I mean? Like I wrote a song with Jordana, and then Paul and I wrote another song with her. If you've heard her music, it's amazing. And maybe that'll get released. I don't know, so, but that's because like, oh, I like your music, you like mine, let's do it. And then that spirit and that energy is a lot more productive. And yeah, I find that a lot of people though really want to write really fast and record really fast, but some of them do a good job of it. But I take my time. I don't know.
Is it do you feel like you're kind of stepping into the other person's mind or other people's mindset when you're doing that? Like, oh, okay, this is where you're coming from. Does it and does do you feel like where you're coming from kind of merges with them and it's coming from a place of mutual roots, I guess you could say?
Definitely. Like, and yeah, I do find that there is kind of a perfect halfway point between like just like freestyling crap into the mic and then recording it and then being like, that's good. And spending 2 years on a song. You know what I mean? Like there's a happy medium where like you are putting more thought into something than, uh, average or nothing, but you're not being too precious about it. I think that a big part of the blocks is like a fear. You know what I mean? There's like a part that's a psychological block where if you are just really open to just letting it happen, it will happen. Um, so yeah, I do think that like finding that like balance between what other people do and what I do has been really helpful. Um, but yeah, I do. I'm more of a write a song and then record it person than like make a beat and then like write over it kind of a person. Although I definitely do both. So anything can work, and it's also important to just change your process. If you've been doing a lot of one thing, try something else.
Good deal. Now, Dent, I've seen a lot of different definitions of your music. A lot of different people define it in different words. How do you describe it in your own words?
I don't. Yeah, I try not to describe my own music. I've definitely not something I like try to do or like to do. But I mean, if a stranger says what kind of music I make, like maybe depending on the who it is, I'll be like singer songwriter. I'm a singer songwriter, which I like. It's kind of cool because like that had sort of a like uncool like your CD is sold at Starbucks kind of a vibe like in the past, but I'm kind of embracing it more. And then like maybe indie pop, you might say. Some people might call it that, which is another thing that like I might have avoided that phrase at some point in my life, but now I'm embracing it again. But I don't really feel a lot of need to define it in any way. But obviously my music like fits in on like an indie pop Spotify playlist more so than a contemporary country or something else, and that's okay. I don't like pursue that necessarily, but it just is what it is. And yeah, I don't know. Like I've definitely like been like appreciating indie more, like as I get as like because you go there's like phases of like I don't want to be indie or am I indie like or am I like this or am I that like and I think that some of these descriptors have phases where they're like cooler to use and not cool to use like um in 2015 it was like a lot cooler to be like Katy Perry than like indie. It felt like there's been all these shifts in like the way that the public seems to be like engaging with music, but like indie is definitely a vague term that doesn't mean anything because you'll go to the indie pop playlist and it's like Taylor Swift, who like I think is really talented, awesome artist, but not really into indie in like the economic sense of things. Is not an indie artist on like huge labels and stuff like that. But the phrase has become more meaningless. I guess I'm aside from that phrase, I've like really just independently minded things and scrappier kind of less polished things that don't sound like they were created by an algorithm or a team of professional songwriters that feel personal and that's kind of the stuff that excites me the most. And I feel like for better or worse we're living in a really good time for that kind of thing. It's there's 100,000 songs a day released on Spotify, so hopefully one of them's good. If one of them is good every day, that's pretty good. And I bet like a lot more than one.
Like two at least,
Yeah.
I think,
Dude,
statistically.
that's pretty
But
good.
yeah, that's pretty good.
And then
Um,
my goal is for my song to be one of the two.
okay,
But
very
really,
good.
honestly, no. My goal is for my song to be one of the like 1,000 best in one day. I release a song on a Friday, and if it's one of the 1,000 best songs out of 100,000, that's pretty good. If it's one of the 100 best songs, then you're like killing it. So
And Friday's a great day
ch-
to
chase your
release it.
dream. Chase your dreams, guys.
Chase them and grab them. Um,
Or don't. Either way.
or don't. I mean, hey,
Doesn't matter.
that's up to you. Who are we to? You know, live your life. Dent, thank you so much for coming on here, sir. Absolute pleasure chatting with you. I'm so glad we were able to do this. But before I let you go, I got some promo to do.
Okay.
So, Dent May's music is streaming everywhere, wherever you get your music. That's where you could find it. All the releases from A Brush with Velvet to Late Checkout, which is the last full album, the
Mm,
latest full
yep.
album that was
Yeah,
released.
yeah.
And everything else in between can be found and purchased at the Bandcamp, which is dentmay.bandcamp.com. And also the merch is also there as well. So go pick up the t-shirts and some of the physical records of some of the releases, but not all.
Yes.
And I think there's gonna be
Please
a
do
limited, very, very, very limited amount of, and I this is just hearsay, so please correct me if I'm wrong, of the first cassette tape of all the covers.
that.
You're
Extremely. It's so limited that if you find it, you're gonna be rich.
right.
If
And
somebody can find Flood, the name of the band was Flood. If you find the cassette from 1997, self-released, private press cassette out of Jackson, Mississippi. If you find that, contact me immediately.
or contact me. I will
No one,
outbid
it's a
Dent.
lost album. No one has it.
Someone's got to have it,
I know.
and
We're gonna
and
find it.
I'm gonna find it, and I'm gonna repress it. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna take it upon myself.
Oh yeah, they're gonna love my like Eve 6 covers that like very poorly recorded. It's gonna blow up.
Radio Shack mic. That's like the best mic.
It was good.
Go on. Great, I would say.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, and people can find more information through your website, dentmade.com, right?
I guess I don't even know what's on there. Don't go. I don't know. Don't go there. Or go
Good
there. I don't know. I don't know.
good
There's
stuff.
not much on there.
I was there today. I was there today. There's good
Okay,
stuff on
cool.
there. Yeah.
Okay, good.
It looks great. There's great stuff on there. Go visit that. But and everybody can stay up to date with news and tours and everything else by following you on Instagram, right? Is that the best place?
If you want to, you can do that. I mean, if I were you, I would just delete the whole thing and throw your phone in a lake. But if you want to, I will update that Instagram when the album is announced. So stay tuned.
Yeah, so either A, throw your phone in the river and forget about it, but if you don't, go follow him
Follow me,
at
smash the follow.
Dent May, all one word. And do we have anything else to promote, Dent?
No,
Okay. All right. Well,
absolutely not. That was way too much to promote.
no, that wasn't even anything. We
I'm
got
humiliated. I'm humiliated. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, that's it.
okay, awesome. Dent, you're amazing. Thank you so much for coming on. I'm gonna stop recording this and I'll talk to you in a minute, okay?
Cool. Thanks for having
All
me.
right.
This was really fun.
Thank you, sir.